You weren't abused. Nothing dramatic happened to you. From the outside, your childhood looked fine. There was food, there was shelter, there were parents in the room. But somewhere in the middle of that ordinary-looking childhood, the affection that was supposed to be there wasn't quite there. Not in the way it needed to be, not consistently, not warmly, not in a way that taught you that you were loved without having to earn it. And now you're an adult, and the absence has left specific patterns in how you move through the world. 6 of them, almost universally. You've probably been doing them for years without knowing why. If you grew up in a household where affection was rare, conditional, or absent, your adult life is almost certainly running on 6 specific patterns that you've been treating as personality. The patterns aren't who you are. They aren't character flaws. They aren't evidence that you're broken or fundamentally too difficult to love. They're predictable, well-documented adaptations to a specific kind of childhood environment, and recognizing them is the first step to letting them stop running you without your permission. Here are the 6. You're uncomfortable receiving affection from other people now. Someone tells you they love you, and your body tenses slightly. Someone tries to hug you for too long and you find yourself counting the seconds. Someone gives you a compliment and you immediately deflect, joke, or change the subject. This isn't because you don't want affection. It's because your nervous system was calibrated in childhood to a baseline that didn't include reliable warmth, and warmth arriving now reads as foreign input. Your body doesn't recognize it as safe. The discomfort isn't a verdict on the person giving you affection. It's a report from a nervous system that wasn't taught how to receive it. You confuse intensity with intimacy. The relationships that have felt most important to you are usually the ones that involve drama, conflict, big emotional swings, or the constant possibility of loss. Calm, steady, affectionate relationships feel boring to you, or worse, suspicious. This isn't because intensity is more real than calm. It's because affection-deprived children grow up associating love with arousal, the urgency of a parent's anger, the spike of brief approval, the high stakes of being noticed at all. Calm registers as absence. The pattern is so deep that adults raised this way often spend decades dismissing healthy partners as unexciting, before realizing they were the only ones who knew how to actually love them. You overexplain yourself in every relationship. You give the context, the backstory, the reasons, the justifications. You preempt every possible misinterpretation. You write the 4-paragraph text when 1 sentence would have done. This isn't because you're a careful communicator. It's because you grew up in an environment where you were rarely met where you actually were. Your feelings were misread, your motives were assumed, your needs were treated as demands. The over-explaining is an adult adaptation to a childhood reality where being understood required a level of effort other children never had to make. Other people now read it as anxiety or excess or oversharing. From inside, it just feels like the minimum required to be seen accurately. You apologize for needing things. Asking for help feels almost physically painful. Telling someone what you actually want from them feels like an imposition. Even basic needs, food, rest, attention, time, arrive in your awareness already wrapped in guilt. This isn't because you're too sensitive about being a burden. It's because, in your original family, needs were often treated as inconvenient, excessive, or shameful. You learn that having needs costs something, sometimes attention, sometimes approval, sometimes safety. The cost made you internalize a rule. Don't need. The rule still runs today, every time you almost ask for something and then decide not to. You can't fully relax in your own home, especially when another person is in it. There's a low-grade vigilance that doesn't quite turn off. You're aware of where the other person is. You're aware of their mood. You're aware of small changes in the atmosphere of the room. This isn't because you're an anxious person by nature. It's because your childhood home was, in some specific way, a place where the emotional weather mattered. Where one person's mood could change the temperature of the whole house. Where being unaware of what was happening had a cost. Your nervous system learned to scan. It hasn't stopped scanning. It probably won't stop scanning until you give it years of evidence that the room is now actually safe. You feel responsible for other people's emotions. When someone in the room is sad, you try to fix it. When someone is angry, you try to calm them. When someone is disappointed, you feel like you caused it even when you didn't. This is the last of the 6 habits, and the one that ties the rest together. Children raised without enough affection often become the emotional caretaker of the adult who was supposed to be taking care of them. You learn to track the parent's emotions because the parent's emotions determined what kind of childhood you got. As an adult, you still do this with everyone you love. It feels like care. It is care. It's also exhausting. Here's what all 6 habits have in common. None of them are character flaws. All of them are adaptations. You developed them because they were the most intelligent response a child could have made to the specific environment you were in. They worked. They kept you connected. They got you to adulthood. The problem isn't that you developed them. The problem is that they're still running, even though the environment has changed, and the same adaptations that protected you as a child are quietly costing you as an adult. The adaptations don't know the environment changed. Nobody told them. They're running the same protective program in a room that no longer requires the protection, which is why so many adults raised this way feel quietly exhausted by relationships that should, in theory, be restful. One thing worth naming. This video can give you the vocabulary for what you've been doing. It cannot tell you what your specific parents did or didn't do. Some viewers will hear this and want to use it as evidence against people in their life. That isn't what it's for. The patterns are real. The recognition is the work. What the recognition means for your specific relationships with parents, partners, your own children is a longer conversation. And the people best positioned to help with it are therapists who specialize in childhood emotional neglect, not internet videos. There's something quietly remarkable about the fact that 6 specific habits in millions of separate lives trace back to the same kind of childhood. The patterns are this consistent because the developmental task was this universal. Every child needs affection. Children who don't get enough of it find ways to keep moving anyway. The ways they find aren't random. They're the same ways, over and over, across cultures and generations and entire continents, because the adaptation is what the child can do, and what the child can do has a limited set of shapes. If you've recognized yourself in some or all of the 6, you're not broken. You're someone whose childhood asked you to become the kind of adult who runs these patterns, and you delivered exactly the adult that environment required. The work now isn't to be ashamed of the adaptations. It's to recognize that the environment has changed, and the adaptations don't have to keep running just because they kept you safe once. You're not broken. You're not damaged. You're not too much or too sensitive or fundamentally defective. You're someone running 6 specific adaptations to a childhood that didn't give you enough affection, and naming them is the first thing that lets them stop running you. If you want more videos that name what your mind is actually doing when you thought you were just being yourself, that's the whole Silent Awareness project. Subscribe and the bell so the next one finds you.